Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, March 7th, Monday, March 8th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening. I'm your host, HostTessaTNT, and I'm so glad that you made it here. This evening is going to be amazing. I'm very excited. If you're listening right now, you're listening on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict. On Saturday nights, make sure that you also check out KPNL, which you can find at kpnl-db.com. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Dave and Carla. Dave and Carla have been close friends since 1998, feeling a deeper spiritual kinship for each other. Dave and Carla had spontaneous memories of 29 past lives together while meditating. They went on to get past life regression training with Dr. Brian Weiss. Now Dave and Carla spread the message of love and kindness and teach holistic approaches to healing. They teach meditation at their local university and senior centers. Dr. Dave was a registered nurse for 10 years before returning to medical school. He recently retired from his private practice. Dr. Dave now serves as the Vice President of Medical Affairs at Smallwood Midwestern Hospital, and Carla recently retired as his office manager, and now they are sharing the message together. The gift of past lives and love is the answer. Welcome, Dave and Carla, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight and sharing your message.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, it's great to be here, Tessa.
So I love that the way you guys met. When you guys first met, did you realize like right away that you knew each other and perhaps it was from past life? How exactly did that happen?
No, in 1998, Dave walked into my home and met my husband and myself for the first time. And then he decided to buy my husband's medical practice. And we got along right away. We were like brother and sister right off the bat. And we didn't know that we had a previous meeting in this life until we began meditating. In 2014, we began to meditate together in the office because we were stressed. And we were implementing electronic medical records. So we thought Dave was normally, like Yogi Bear or, Fred Flintstone, but he wasn't that way anymore. He was stressed. He was spending long hours doing medical records and all of the things that go with it. So he agreed that we would go ahead and meditate. And in the beginning, it was the entire office, and then the other girls didn't want to come in, so we began to meditate together. And one of the first memories that he had in the middle of meditating was in 1962. I'm from Boston. Dave is from Iowa. And in 1962, Dave's father loaded up the family and they went to Massachusetts so that he could work on his master's degree in between when school was out because he was a principal. And in 1962, for the first time, his father took them to the beach, and Dave was running down the beach screaming like an obnoxious 3-year-old. And I happened to be there that day with my family. Our circumstances were totally different. I was the youngest of 5 girls. My parents were always splitting up. We were the nice Catholic family, but they were always splitting up, but they were back together that particular day. And when we got there that day, after renting 2 cabs because we didn't have our own car, I had no bathing suit. And normally I would have inherited a bathing suit. So this story was etched in my mind because on that day, the 7 of us went across the street to this beach to the little souvenir shop, and I got my first blue two-piece ruffled bathing suit. I was 4 years old. It was etched in my mind forever.
And
And for day, go ahead,
yeah,
Dave.
yeah. The interesting part of this is I didn't remember this till the day when I had this memory when I was meditating. And I started to talk about running on the beach, and this little girl came over and pushed me down. She sat on my chest. She kissed me on the forehead. She jumped up and I said, and she had on this little blue two-piece ruffled bathing suit. And Carla looked at me and said, "Oh my God, it's me." And that was 38 years later, or now 35 years later, that I walked into the office and bought the practice that Tom owned. And so when I was telling her, she goes, "Oh my God, it's me. It's my two-piece bathing suit." And she explained that she got it across the street.
Mm-hmm. And my sister worked in the office with us. We had with him since 1998. This is now 2014. And he had never mentioned being in Boston. And when he started to tell his story, my sister and I knew specifically because the beach he was on was Revere Beach in Boston. Revere Beach had an amusement park with it. There was a Ferris wheel, and it wasn't just, sand and water. So as he told this, my sister and I just looked at him. We were dumbfounded. We had, chills up our back. We had met before and never realized it. So that was our first meeting, but we didn't realize it until 2014 when we started to meditate again. And then...
So when
Dave?
you pushed him down and jumped on him and kissed his forehead, did you guys play after that, or was that the meeting and it was over?
That was it.
Wow.
Our parents stood there talking.
There's a little tiny bit of it. It's really interesting because the other memory I had was that the little girl had to share her peanut butter sandwiches with me, and all the crusts were cut off. And I had never seen a peanut butter sandwich with the crust cut off because my grandmother didn't make them that way. My mother didn't make them that way. So I'm telling her all the sandwiches had the crust off, and she goes, "Well, that's the way my mother made them." Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting story for us, and we were like, "That's kind of strange," but we kept doing the meditation. It was making me feel better in the office. And then I had a day where I had this memory, and I was standing in an alley. And I looked across the alley, and it was dark, and there were men standing there. And Carla was standing there. Now, I say Carla. I knew it was Carla. She was even blonder than now. She had these same big, warm, steel blue eyes. But she was dressed in this flapper outfit with the ruffles and the sequin fringe and all that. Yeah. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, why am I having a dream about Carla dressed like a flapper? Suddenly 2 big bright lights went off and I got hit in the chest, thrown back, and realized I'd been shot.
Oh man.
And so I told her this little blip of a memory, and I was like, I don't know what this means. I don't know if it's some sort of strange dream. The next day I was meditating, and I got more of the story. And I met the flapper at a wedding. The wedding was of a man named Angelo. When I met her at the wedding, I asked her to go out to breakfast the next day. And the next day she came and showed up at Marino's for breakfast. And we walked after that down the coastline of Chicago. And she was telling me about her life and living in Bullock, Georgia as a kid, and that her name was Ruby Donaldson and her father's name was James. And she wanted to be a dressmaker. And she was telling me all of her life dreams. And she had sang at the wedding of Angelo. So Carla's very curious. So Carla, the next day she had off. What did you do, Carla?
Well, I got onto Ancestry.com, and I found a Ruby Donaldson born in Bullock, Georgia in 1904, one of 11 children born to James and Anna Donaldson. Now, luckily, we knew these names and we knew some of the details.
That's insane.
And then I know.
It's
Then I
giving me
found an
goosebumps.
article on, absolutely, a gangster named Angelo Genna. And Angelo Genna had been the head mob boss in Chicago, North End, before Capone. And he got married on January the 10th, 1925, to a woman named Lucille Spinola. And their wedding cake was over 10 feet tall. This was another article I found. It showed two women standing next to the wedding cake, and it towered over them because it was serving over 3,000 mobsters at Ashland Auditorium where they had gotten married. So I called Dave after I found all of these things, and I never heard of Angelo Genna unless you're some sort of a mobster, collector of that sort of thing. I never heard of him, and so I took that back to Dave, and I said, everything you told me, I could corroborate. So you're not crazy.
And it was interesting because Angelo ran bootleg liquor. And I went back to try to meet Ruby again at DeAndre's bar, which was a speakeasy that was secret at the time, and got shot because I was messing with Angelo's flapper. Now, it's also interesting because I walked Ruby home on the beach, or after walking down the coast of Chicago. And so we live in Ohio now. And we finally got in the car and we drove to Chicago's Little Italy, walked down the street. I walked where I remembered and turned a corner. Now, we'll talk about Isabella in a minute because she's my spirit guide. But we turned the corner, walked down the street. Isabella says, "You're getting very close." I turned and I said, "I think that's the apartment building Ruby lived in." 900 and some Loomis Street. And the name of the apartment building was the Isabel Apartments. And a friend of ours did the research on the apartment building. The apartment building has always been an apartment building, and it was built in 1899. So we actually found where Ruby lived. And after that, we actually went to a little Italian restaurant in the neighborhood, and they sat us down by a stained glass or etched glass window of a flapper with a hat pulled down that looked just like Ruby wore.
Synchronicities.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And so that started all of our looking at all of this stuff. We kept meditating. We kept writing everything down. Sometimes I got strange little memories. I got a Mayan temple. Now, I didn't know it was a Mayan temple, but it was a temple with a bunch of steps. And it was interesting because Carla had visited the Mayan Riviera. She went to her computer, brought up this picture, and I said, "That's the temple." I saw a gold dome in Boston, which is, we now know why. I saw little squirrels, stuffed squirrels along a little workshop. Lots of strange little things that we just kept writing them down. After this first reincarnation thing, past life memory, Isabella was telling us that she had been my spirit guide for 6,000 years.
Holy shnikes.
And that I had 42 lives, Carla had 34, and that we had 29 past lives together. We soon met Isabella. We met Isabella. Then we met Elizabeth, which is Carla's spirit guide. We also met Carla's mother. Carla's mother passed away 20 years before then. And she came to me one day. And this was another one of those times when I thought maybe I was crazy, but this really friendly, happy woman who reminded me of Carla kept showing me this shoe. And I told Carla, "She's showing me this shoe." And she's jovial and she's happy, and she kind of reminds me of you from the side view because of the eyelashes. And Carla ran over to her computer and she brought up this list of 60 shoes, and I pointed over and I said, "I think it's that shoe." And Carla said, "Yeah, that's the one."
Well, the reason the shoe is important is that, well, first of all, Dave never met my mother. She had passed before he bought the practice. But my mother was a ballroom dancer. So her entire life, we were not well off. And in those days, the women would buy satin shoes and re-dye them.
Mhm.
So she always wore this open-toed satin shoe. And she'd wear it to church or, dress up or things like that. But she wore it her whole life because it was comfortable until she no longer could wear it. So for him to pick that shoe out of all of those choices, I mean, that was pretty darn good. And the whole eyelash thing, had it not caught my attention, it's because my mother and I had a conversation once while she was still living about the fact that without mascara, you couldn't even see that we had eyelashes.
Right.
So when he said that, he caught my attention, and him never meeting her, not knowing what she looked like or that she, what type of shoe she wore, it was another one of those, aha moments, and just too many synchronicities there.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, earlier when you guys met, he remembers the peanut butter sandwiches with the crust cut off, but you don't really
Yes.
remember the adults because you have this height thing going on. But like you were saying,
Mhm.
synchronicities with the stained glass looking just like
Yes.
you did before, and then
Yes.
the name of the apartment kind of aligning with the name of his guide. Do you guys feel like
Yes.
your guides are related to you, or are they just certain spirits or energies that took an interest in your life and wanted to make sure that you got through them correctly, or just wanted to help you out?
In our third book that's coming out very shortly, it's called The Manual. And we talk about how in the beginning, the way we were created in groups of 4. And we refer to those as pods. And it's 3 souls and one spirit guide. And Dave's and my pods are next to each other. And interestingly enough, Dave's spirit guide, Isabella, is from my pod, and my spirit guide, Elizabeth, is from Dave's pod.
Oh, wow.
So one more reason that, we're drawn, and I know you've heard the term family mates before. Family mates are soul groups. You come back together over and over and over again because you work well together. Or your karmic mate, who is also part of your soul group usually, because you have something to work out with them. So, yes, in a way we are related. Dave always says she looks similar to me.
Yes,
My
Isabella
spirit guide-
reminds me of Carla, in not only because Carla has always kept me straight, but that's sort of what Isabella's like too.
Gotta keep you
And
on
my
that straight and
spirit guide
narrow.
You
Yes.
got it. Elizabeth, my spirit guide, is very sweet, like Dave. Very sweet and nice. And she comes to me, they come to us looking different ways because they don't look like anything. They don't have eyes anymore. They're just balls of energy. So they will make themselves look the way you are comfortable with seeing them. So Elizabeth has come to me with as a little sweet girl with long dark hair, and she has her head down, kind of shyish. Or she's come to me. We were talking about Cleopatra one day, and she came to me with very thick black eyeliner on. I mean, she's funny. They'll do things like that. And she said she comes to me in the way that I need her to be at the moment. Sometimes she comes as a real tough black woman with dreadlocks and sunglasses.
Oh, my.
It just depends. Yes, it depends on what I need at the moment, apparently. What do you say, Dave?
So, well, again, when I see Isabella, she reminds me very much of Carla. And that's somehow very comforting. And another reason why I think Carla and I are so comfortable together. And like we said before, we found 29 past lives together. Now, she's been my wife, girlfriend, friend. She's been my sister. She's been my mother twice that we know of. Our very first life was 6,000 years ago. We were both born in Israel, somewhere close to the Mount of Olives. Again, I have this physician thing, so I immediately started looking, and there's actually a community of an early settlers or civilization that's 6,000 or 7,000 years old, right there on the Mount of Olives, that was outside of where Jerusalem was. So we know that there were humanoid people there. And those kind of things start to go, really, there's some truth to this. In that first life, we actually traveled from the Mount of Olives, and it's crazy to have these kind of memories. But we went along the Dead Sea, and we settled in the south part of the Dead Sea in an area that looks like an oasis. And we tried to research it, and we found out the Iron Gedi is there. And there's actually a stream there called David's Stream. And our first life, my name was David also.
Oh, wow.
And Carla's name was Ariella. And we did the research. And when they write Carla and Ariella in Hebrew, it's the same name.
That's interesting.
Those kind of things start, yes. Mm-hmm. And I've had the name David 4 times over 42 lives. Carla's had Susanna. She's had Cara. She had Susanna 2 or 3 times. She's had Cara, Carla, Karen.
Carlise.
So there's some things that follow you. And then is because we started getting into the name thing, we started realizing that Isabella and Elizabeth are actually derivations of the same name, and so it becomes really, really interesting how we're tied together. And so then as we kept looking at all this, we started doing more research on reincarnation. We found lots of actual research since 1950s and 60s. Ian Stevenson, Jim Tucker, Jim Matlock have been doing research on kids with spontaneous childhood memories. Now that's interesting, Tessa, because you told us your daughter had a spontaneous memory when she was young. Well, they've actually documented 2,400 cases of kids who have past life memories, and some of the memories are incredible. There's a young boy in India who kept saying that he missed his wife, and the wife lived in, I can't pronounce most of the Indian cities, in another city, in a blue house on the corner. And in India, it's a little bit more open. So the parents actually took him and they drove to the next town, which was 30 miles away. They drove down the streets until he pointed to a house and said, "That's where I used to live." He went up to the door and knocked on the door. He called the woman by name when she opened the door. He ran upstairs, turned to the right, and pointed to a floorboard and said, "There's $4,000 under the floorboard. I buried it there." And they pull up the floorboard and there's $4,000. Those kind of stories, there's no way you could teach that 3-year-old that there's money somewhere in somebody's house in another town. There's about 2,400 cases like that they've documented. They use children because children can't be prepared and coached and taught anything, and they're always trying to find things that can be studied. And they look at those things. Then we started comparing near-death experiences, past life regression, spontaneous memory. And all of these people have consistent stories. They talk about the time between lives with past life regression, and they talk about seeing spiritual beings, getting a past life review, planning your next life, coming back. You talk to people who've had NDEs, and they say, there were spiritual beings and my family met me, and I saw a past life review, and then they told me I wasn't done, and then I had to come back.
And I didn't want
and
to.
nobody wants to come back because
Yeah.
it's
love
beautiful
and light
there.
and happiness, like everything you've ever needed is right there. So it's like, do I really need to go back? I don't want to. So in this in-between time, do they get any sort of schooling or anything? Because I know there's lots of lessons that we need to learn, and that's why a lot of us are repeating our lives, I think, is to get it right this time or do it differently or whatnot. For me, it's all about love and light and helping each other and raising each other up, because it is a difficult world to be in. But I've always wondered about that. Is there some sort of school or whatnot in between lives where they're learning things that they didn't quite grasp before? I say they, but it could be we.
Actually, yes. So I'll tell you a couple things. So I've seen a few of my times between lives, and it's literally like watching a movie. They run through your past life and maybe a few other lives, and they're showing you what you did wrong. And you actually feel, if you're in war and you shoot somebody, you feel what it's like for their wife who lost a husband. So you feel some of her pain so that you learn compassion. And then there's a real interesting past life review that I got to watch, which was my father's. We call that time atonement. But I saw my father's last past life review, and there's a life when he was a slave trader, and he chained people into the bottom of his boat, separated them from his family. In the next life, his daughter was abducted. His wife died in childbirth, so he would have to feel what it was like when people were taken and split from their families. And in the life as my father, he's a great man, really a wonderful guy. I love Dad a lot. The last 20 years of his life, my dad got a very serious case of Parkinson's and spent 20 years chained to his wheelchair.
Oh, no.
So those are the kind of lessons that you have to learn so that you learn compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And Carla, do you want to tell her about the 5 simple rules?
Sure, but we should tell your audience and you, Tessa, that we started to meditate, and Dave had no idea in 2014 when this all began that he had an extra special gift. He can close his eyes and reach the spiritual world like we're talking right now. That's not so easy for all of us. When I meditate, I have to really completely shut down. But he can carry on a conversation with them or go back to a past life, just like he's living it right now. So he gets great amount of details in everything. And everything we write has a lot of details because he's able to go back, right down to the type of hat that Ruby was wearing, just great amount of details. So as far as in the beginning, when Dave kept getting bits and pieces of pictures and things, we just journaled everything. And Isabella told us to just write everything down. And then she started to tell us that having past lives isn't, it's entertaining and it's fun, but there's also learning that goes with it. You have to learn. So with that, she said, I'm going to take the 10 Commandments and narrow them down and make it real simple for you. These are easy rules for you to follow. Follow these and you'll be on the right path, and you can get off of that reincarnation wheel that goes on and on and on. So she gave us this example. She said, if you live the 5 simple rules, which are to live without conceit, without jealousy, without selfishness, and always forgiving, and always do everything in the name of love, that's all you need. Because those things, if you were to come up with any emotion or tendency that you have, they all fall under one of those 4, either conceited, ego is conceit, jealousy, selfishness, unforgiveness. They all fall under those things. So in our first book, which is called The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth, the reason it's called that is because Dave met my mother, Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. And one of the other very large
So
parts
your
of the
mother's
book,
name is Isabella too?
no,
No,
my
okay.
mother's name was Cindy, actually.
Okay. I was just making
No,
sure. I was like, wait a minute.
so
Okay, now we got another synchronicity going on.
no, we refer to her as mother because we found out through all of this. Dave's had 42 past lives, and I've had the 34. 2 of Dave's lives were actually miscarriages to my mother. She miscarried before she started having her 6 daughters. So he would have been my big brother too. So we refer to her as mother. So Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. Anyway, in that particular book, we have 20 of our past life stories. And at the end of those stories, we give the reason that we reincarnated again. What did we do wrong in that life? And how did it relate to those 5 simple rules? At one point, we had a Chinese life. We were actually part of the Han Dynasty in Mandarin China.
Oh, wow.
And, well, we've all been saints and sinners. We've all been kings and queens. We've all been, rich, poor, black, white. We've done it all. A lot of
Slave
stuff.
traders.
You got it.
absolutely.
All of it. Because how else can you learn compassion if you don't live those all sides?
Mm-hmm.
But during that particular life, Dave was actually a guard in the palace, and I was a very young empress to the emperor, which didn't do me any good. I sat in my room all day waiting for him to say, okay, you can talk now. But I felt a little bit, I know. And that's a lot in a lot of my past lives. It was just the way history was. But, I was entitled in that life. And, if I was in a bad mood, I would tell my guard, kill that man, just because I could. And, that sounds horrible, but we've all done that. That's the way the world used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we've not been perfect, or we wouldn't be here so many times. But if you take that opportunity and every choice you make, you say to yourself, is that conceited? Am I being selfish? Is that jealous? Am I forgiving everything? Because we should forgive everybody of everything, because otherwise it weighs on us.
Yeah, and that's so true. Like, a lot of people don't get it, and they're like, I might forgive, but I'll never forget. But that goes against the whole forgiveness thing. Don't forget and make the same mistake again, but forget what was put against you or what has happened to you that, made your life so hard. But it is so very important, not just for the person you're forgiving, but for yourself, to get that weight off your shoulders, because that really does weigh you down.
It does. And you have to, number one, forgive yourself. Because if you don't forgive yourself, then you're just wasting a lot of time beating yourself up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think if you can't forgive yourself, you can't forgive others. It all starts with
true.
you.
Mm-hmm. And if you can't love yourself, you don't love others.
Yeah,
that goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
What do you say, Dave?
We started learning lots of lessons about karma. Now, again, karma's not
I love her. She's a bitch, but I love her.
Yeah.
So the karma part is a little bit, it's not about punishment, even though you have to live some of the same thing. It's really about learning compassion. You have to, if you don't live both sides of all these issues, if you don't see what it's like to have that happen to you, you can't understand when you've done it to someone else. We started to look at patterns. It's really interesting. We have a life in Scotland where we were Vikings actually attacking the Scottish. And the next life, we were English attacking the Scottish. And then in another life, we were Scottish attacking the English. And then Carla was of Viking descent and married into the royal family. And then they fought against Scotland again. So sometimes we find that we were actually fighting even against ourselves. And that's a lesson you start learning, that in war, there's no winners, because you're really fighting against yourself on the other side. And the same thing happens with religion. We found Muslim, Christian, Jewish, pagan lives in all of these lives, because if you don't live them, you don't understand what they think.
And the easiest way to come back on the other side is to be prejudiced. Let's say you're a male chauvinist and you think that women are, okay, you're going to come back as a woman. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah.
Or if you're rich and you take advantage of everybody because of it, then you're probably coming back and you'll be on the other side to see what it feels like. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Now, we started learning a few other things. One of our early messages from Isabella was that there is no hell, that this was God's plan from the beginning, that you would have chance after chance, life after life, trying to learn all the lessons so that you could complete this, that your spark of love when you're created, and you return as a spark of love when you're clean. Mm-hmm. And those kind of things made us even more curious. So we kept doing more research. Again, Carla said our first book is The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. Our second book was Hell No, Reincarnation.
Hell no.
And yes, hell no. And we went out and started looking at, so one of our first things was to look at hell. And we found that, the Bible says Sheol, which is the place where Jewish dead people go. Hades, which is the Greek place that dead people go. Then the other place in the Bible was called Gehenna, or the Valley of Gehenna. And it's a ditch outside of Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
It's part of the sewage system.
Oh, no.
Yes, the sewage all drains down. It pours into Gehenna. In the old Jewish history, the judges and the kings would sometimes put their illegitimate children to death out in the ditch behind Jerusalem. They persecuted Christians in the ditch and put them on crosses or on poles, really. And they would burn people there. And if they burned people, there was so much of the sewage that it was almost constantly burning. And the King James Bible went in and tried to write everything in English. And so the word Sheol, Hades, and the Valley of Gehenna were all changed to the same word and called hell.
Yeah. Because it all basically means the same thing, but it's just different variations.
And hell was named after Helia because King James's wife was of Germanic descent, and Helia was the German god of the underworld. And so they came up with the name Hell to name it. We start looking at those kind of things. And so in Hell No, Reincarnation, we tell that story.
I don't know why Helga's House of Pain keeps popping in my head. Helga's House of Pain.
And so we started doing the research, and that's when we found out about all those people who had past life memories. We finally, a few years ago, went and got past life regression training ourselves with Dr. Brian Weiss. We don't really do it for a living, but we do it for friends and family and those kind of things because we wanted to share this experience. And people have some incredible experiences doing past life regression.
It's amazing. Do you feel like when they do this, like it heals certain parts of them that they've always had this emptiness or this question or something pulling them a certain direction, and once they do this past life regression, do you ever find that they're renewed or they feel better about things that have been going on? Or understand it clearer? I don't know.
Well, absolutely. One of the best things about past life regression is its healing potential. A lot of people have things they carry with them. And so Carla can tell you a couple past life regressions that she did with maybe the one young lady who was scared of fires.
Oh, yes. We knew a girl that Well, she had a couple issues. She didn't like to be around people, big groups of people at all. She had a problem with that. And when we regressed her, we took her back to her past life. And in her past life, she was actually in a sewing factory on the 3rd story, and the building caught on fire. And she was trying to get downstairs to help the people out that were sewing in the basement. She actually jumped out the window, broke her ankle. What's interesting is that she actually has a bone that protrudes on that same ankle.
Oh, wow.
In this life. But when she was a child, when she was very small, she wouldn't talk. And her parents took her for all kinds of scans to see what the issue was. And it seems that she was only like 2 years old. And they took her for a scan. And because she was so young, they needed to sedate her. And when she came to, she was actually in a crib that had bars. It immediately brought back memories of her life before that, the bars on the window and trying to get the people out. And then one of her parents came in, had been outside smoking, and the smoke reminded her. So since she was a child, she had had issues with all of those things. Once we pointed those things out to her, she understood it better. We haven't seen or heard from her lately, so I'm not sure how she's doing, but it did seem to help. And then when we were at the Omega Institute in New York, interestingly, the United States is way behind believing in reincarnation. The other countries are way ahead of us. And countries, for instance, like Chile, they sent their workers from hospitals, like social workers, to learn past life regression, to use as a tool for the end-of-life patients, to help them, to assist them. And one particular social worker, I regressed her, and it, I was really new into this, and I didn't expect certain things to happen, but luckily I got through it. The very first life I took her back to was in Jerusalem, and the Romans had just kidnapped her little boy. He was 2 or 3 years old, and she was just in a panic about it.
Oh, God,
and so
I
I
cannot
was
imagine.
I know. It was scary for me as well, because it's real, it's personal.
Yeah.
And but found out that through this, that the little boy that she lost in that life was actually the man that she's engaged to in this life. And she said they had issues in the beginning of their relationship because she kept thinking he was going to leave her. And of course, that goes right back to that life where that child was taken from her.
Not that he intentionally did it. He was forced to leave, but she just had that
that's right.
episode going on.
Mm-hmm. So once she could put those two things together and understand it, it helped. It was interesting. And there was another woman that I actually took back to where you wait to be reincarnated. We refer to that as their pod.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will think that it's not, they say that they don't think it's of this world. Well, it's not. But you see a lot of light, bright light, different colors, the colors of the like a rainbow, the spectrum of colors. And there's crystal, like a crystal-like appearance, because everything is refracting. I guess that's the right word.
It refracts.
Off of it. So this particular woman thought that I'd taken her to some other planet, when in fact I had taken her to her pod, and she was waiting in the pod. She didn't want to leave it once I had her there. She said it was warm and it was nice and it felt like home. And I said, okay, I understand that, but I did have to bring her out of it. Eventually didn't want to leave her there. So anyway, those are just a couple of my, yes. Anyway,
we had
Dave,
a question in the
today?
chat here. Let's let Dave say what he has to say really quick, because I don't want him to lose it, and I'll bring up what Rosie had to ask here.
No.
Take your question.
Go Go ahead, take the question.
Okay, Rosie was saying, and let me scroll back because it looks like she might have said something before, but she didn't. Okay, so it says also that we need to live 12 times for each zodiac sign to understand each sign, but as you're saying, your lives, or you live many more times than this, my thoughts were 12 ties with zodiac, but also each male and female, which would make 24 times to truly understand each as male and female, because they experience differently. And she said, just my thoughts, but I do wonder.
Well, for me, I've never been anything except a woman. Because we get great details, we actually know all of our names, all of our astrological signs, what we died from, all of our children, and we know who those children are to us today, or who, in our what soul family group they're in. There are 12 astrological signs, there are 12 traits, there are 12 archetypes, and all of those go into each one of our incarnations, but we're not limited to just 12. And I've not been every sign. I think I've been everything except a Sagittarian.
Oh, well,
and Dave has been.
I could help you out with that. No, I'm just kidding.
Aw.
Okay,
Yeah,
Carla.
been,
So if
yes.
you're a Sagittarian, Tessa, Carla's going to tell you a little bit. This is actually in our third book that's coming up, the manual. So I'll let Carla take it from there.
Okay.
Well, we're assigned when God is deciding what astrological sign that we will be in our trait and our archetype. God actually assigns us an angel, and the angel is based on the tendencies we had in the previous life. So let's say in the previous life, we were conceited. So in this life, God gives us the angel of conceit, which would be Shamuel, and it's a pink angel, and that's to help us overcome that in this life. Now, there's the astrological signs are broken into 4 sets of 3s. So you have Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. They fall under the yellow angel, which is in Mariel's legion. Then you have Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer that fall under, I got to get this right now. Got to think without reading. I'm doing it all in my head.
I don't know. I have to refer back to stuff all the time.
I know it. Only gets worse as you get older. So Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer are the ones that have that pink angel. That's in Shamuel's legion of conceit. Then you have Leo, Virgo, Libra, which is the green angel in Raphael's legion. That's the angel of jealousy. And then we have Scorpio, Sagittarian, and Capricorn with the red angel of unforgiveness, and that's from the legion of Uriel. So do you feel like you have a problem with forgiving people?
No, I actually learned at an early age, because I lost my mom to a drunk driver when I was 5, almost 6, and I had issues for years and always wished different things, but I learned at a very young age to forgive, and so I did. I forgave that person, and after I did that, like, I'm all about it because it made me feel so much better, and it helped me to move on, and instead of being the victim, I refuse to. I'll grow stronger and I'll continue on.
Yes.
So that's a big thing for me. And like you said, then you learn later on, subconsciously I would try to self-sabotage. I think due to different things in my life, I felt like subconsciously I didn't deserve to be happy. So I'd do different things subconsciously to sabotage my happiness. And so I learned that. But yeah, I'm all about forgiveness. I don't like to carry a grudge because it just brings me down, and I can't do it.
So think about it. You've got a specific angel that's working on that, and it's working pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting, you guys were talking about religion earlier, and from a very early age, I was seeking out religion, And then later on in my life, when I joined the military, I had like every religion at my fingertips. So every weekend I'd go to a different church, and I feel like if we all just came together as humans, religion, and everything else going on, we'd get so much further. But there's that ego, and there's those different things going on where we know everything and we have the true and righteous truth, but we all have a little piece of it. And if we just work together, we'd get so much further, because I do think everybody has a little portion of truth there. Just bring it together. Come on, let's do it.
That's in the book too, that we believe that there's some truth in all religion. All of them are trying to point in a certain direction. And it is really about the choice to love. You know, whether it's love your neighbor as yourself, or karma, you get what you sow, what you reap, and all of those kind of things.
Yeah,
that's the right way. You know, because all of those are messages that we need to have as humans to survive. That we have a purpose, and that our purpose is to be good to one another. And
I know. It's so crazy. Go ahead.
And reincarnation is really how we're programmed, and we still have to have free will. Free will is very important. And,
one of the main plans.
And the reason it's important is you can't love if you can't give love freely. It can't be coerced. It can't be forced. You can't do it out of guilt. And you really can't do it out of religious obligation. Because otherwise it's not really love, because it's not coming from your heart. It's coming from a point of fear, and you can't really love and fear at the same time.
Yeah. It's kind of like oil and water.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've actually lost a lot of friends because, you know, I don't judge. I accept everyone. You know, people make mistakes. If you learn from it, it's a lesson, not a mistake. And it's not my place to judge. So, you know, I have a plethora of different kinds of friends, and sometimes they clash. And so, you know, I get unfriended or whatever. But for me, I prefer it that way. Like, I'm not here to judge. If I were, I could imagine my life would be much harder, but I just accept and love and try to appreciate everyone's different perspectives. I love hearing different perspectives, but I don't know. I think, like you said before, on this earth, for a lot of people, it's like hell. And it is very, very hard. And I think especially today, I don't know about you guys, but it does feel like, even though we've talked about it since the beginning of time, kids these days and the end of the world, it really does feel like something big is about to happen. And this is a time that we really need to accept each other and love each other and help each other out. And it's so very important. Always, but especially today, I think we need to just be there for each other.
You're absolutely right, Tessa.
Well, on that note, you guys, I hate to interrupt. Go ahead, Dave. You finish what you're going to say.
Go ahead.
Well, we're going to
say you got to take a break.
Yeah, we're going to go to our first musical break, and on this break we have Michaela Hay, and she is from Toronto, Canada. She's going to be singing Collapse, Close, Devil You Know, Nothing But Blood, and then we got Mr. Fred Johnson III with Sugar. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Yeah, we're going too fast, 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 fast. Get your foot off the gas, 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 gas. Yeah, we're gonna crash. How is this gonna last when we always collapse? Yeah, we're going too fast, 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 fast. Get your foot off the gas, 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 gas. Yeah, we're gonna crash. How is this gonna last when we always collapse? Slap, 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 slap. When we always collapse. Oh, I can see the end begin. When we always collapse. Oh, I can see the end begin. Saw you for the first time in a while, in a while. You seemed so surprised. I worked out a smile, out a smile, out a smile. 'Cause I've grown and I've changed. Yeah, we went separate ways. How come we're both back here? 'Cause you pushed me away, had my life rearranged, but still we're both back here. Close to me, I want you close to me. I can see that you wanted me. There's too much sky, too blue, too white. The birds on the wire are singing, but I don't know why. Why aren't the roses hanging their heads? They're standing straight up, blooming instead. Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. Why does that guy have a smile on his face? Why is the sun even shining today? Why are the headlines talking about love? Don't they all know what happened to us? Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. The moon goes up, the sun goes down, the stars light up, the world goes round. Every day, life moves on, it don't stop for anyone. The moon goes up, the sun goes down, the stars light up, the world goes round. Every day, life moves on, it don't stop for anyone. Now that we're apart, there's nothing. Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. Ooh, blood in my heart. Ooh, blood in my heart.
Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? My sugar. You will always be the one, my sugar. The feeling is so strong. Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. Where did our love go wrong, my sugar?
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are joined by Dave and Carla. Welcome back, guys. It's been awesome hanging out with you guys tonight.
It's great to
Good to
be
be here.
here. Yep. So Tessa, during the little break, we were talking about some other past life regression issues and things to try to help people out there that are listening to try to understand this. Our subconscious keeps following us, as does our consciousness from life to life. And now that's why some of this stuff works. Carla and I had a lot of spontaneous memories while we were meditating. When you're meditating, you actually access the subconscious. In your brain, alpha and theta waves start to kick in. That's a part of the front of the brain and the back of the brain. When you have hypnosis to do past life regression, same alpha waves, same theta waves get kicked in. Interesting, the time between wake and sleep also has the same alpha and theta waves that start to come in. So some people do have past life memories that are actually occur in dreams as they're starting to wake up. Past life regression can again show you that we live life after life, chance after chance, trying to get this right, that there is no end. And part of the liberating fact there really is no death. Your soul continues. That consciousness continues and flows with you and finds another body in another time frame down the line, carrying all those lessons. The things that's really interesting about that is when science looks at it, the subconscious records every single thing that happens to you as a positive or negative experience. So the example I'd like to give people is the first time you touch something that's hot, it burns you. The second time you touch something hot, you pull back faster. When you find something you like, you're drawn to that again. If you think of reincarnation that way and those memories from your past, if you were shot at war, you're going to want to not go to war next time. If you burned yourself, you're not going to want that. If you meet someone who's very special and an incredible person, you're going to be drawn back to them. And Carla and I have been drawn back to each other 29 past lives. All of those things start to work. And you start to understand how the whole picture starts to work. And how the karma follows you because you're trying to avoid those negative things you did in the past. The positive things start to follow you until the only choice you have is to make decisions out of love. We've had a lot of interesting experiences. I'm going to tell your listeners a little story about a trip that I made to England. It was a very interesting trip. We found past lives everywhere that Carla has ever been. I mean, I shouldn't say everywhere, but we found a life in Bermuda. We found a Mayan life, and she had been to the Mayan Riviera. We found a life in North Carolina, and she had visited North Carolina. We found a life in South Dakota, and she'd been to South Dakota. We found a life in England, and this is the story. I was going through it. There's our cat. Oh, I can't see it on TV, on the radio, but when I was going through a divorce,
I was about to say we're actually an adult station because we're not on terrestrial, so feel free to speak freely.
No.
So anyway, I was going through a divorce, and my sister called, and my niece said she wanted to take me on this trip to England because my sister and brother and niece were all going. So I went. The very first day when I got there, we all jumped out of the plane after being in the air forever, and I ran to the Museum of London. I walked into the Museum of London, and I'm walking around looking at all these old things, and I'm standing in front of the bust of Ramesses II. And as I'm standing there, I start hearing clink, 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 and my mind goes back, and I realize that I carved the bust in front of me. I tried to do the research. We found a life there. I found Carla there, actually married her in that life. Ramesses II came through and spoke to the foreman, who said that I was such a good stonecutter that I went to the Valley of the Kings and worked on the tombs of Ramesses II. So that story came out because we were there. The next day, I went on a bus trip from London out and went to Stonehenge. And as I'm going to Stonehenge, Isabella tells me that Carla's descendants lived in Stonehenge. That was an interesting story, to see something that's 3,700 years old. As I'm driving back from Stonehenge, we drive through the Cotswolds. And I hear and see thatched roofs. And part of the memories we had of a past life is a life as Robert and Sarah in the Cotswolds in the 1650s. And we actually sold everything we owned. It was a beautiful life. It was great. We sold everything we owned because we were taking the trip on a boat to America. But Sarah doesn't get to go. And people have to read the book to find out. But there's a memory where I'm standing in Bristol, which is a seaport, and all of the boats, I see an old boat, and the mast is there, and it starts billowing, and I'm standing there and looking over this boat, and I remember that I'm leaving my wife in England because she can't go to America. Those are the kind of details that are in our book. The Gifts of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth, because there's lessons for everybody to learn there. The Cotswold life is probably still my favorite because it was a happy, beautiful life, even though I didn't get to take my wife to the new country.
Dave, you should probably tell the story of the ring on the front of the book.
I'm going to tell the story of the ring on the front of the book.
Can you pull the book from behind you, Dave?
Yeah, I can, but...
And for those of you in the chat and stuff, if you look at our Facebook ad that we did for the show, I did both the covers of the book for that, so you can refer back to that, or you can actually look up the book if you want to Google it or whatnot, but quick reference, you can look at the ad and see this particular ring. It's very interesting.
It's a 2.7 carat ruby ring. I think it's 2 point something close to that. Ruby ring. And the first time we saw this ring, it was on Ruby Donaldson's hand, the flapper, that I met in Chicago at DeAndre's Bar, the Speakeasy. And that was the first time we saw this ring. We then learned about the ring as we were going through our past lives. The first time this ruby shows up is 980 AD. It was found by a man and his son who was marrying Carla and I's daughter. We were Vikings, and we became part of the McKee clan in Scotland.
My gosh.
We went back, we did the research, and indeed there are rubies in Scotland. They come in marble.
They grow in marble. We
They
didn't
grow
know
in
that.
marble,
Wow.
and that it was discovered there. And we found that ruby 34 times through our past lives. And it becomes split. We found out that it was split, and that Ruby finally got it from her great aunt, Ruby, who she was named after. We actually have the actual copy of this ring, and Carla wears it occasionally. It was passed through all these lives. Sometimes it was sold into slave trade. And at the end of the story, we say, through these 34 lives, which happens to match the number of lives that Carla has, the ring passed through conceit, selfish jealousy, and unforgiveness, till it was finally passed from Ruby to her daughter, from Ruby's daughter to her daughter, from Ruby's daughter to daughter, in love and love. And actually, this ring is now in Chicago on Ruby's great granddaughter. Is that the right number of greats?
I think it's 4 grades.
It's 4 greats, yes.
It's 4 grades.
It's so
It's
hard
4
to keep
grades.
all that
So-
in check.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But that particular ring shows up. It was sold in slave trade. It was sold through Bermuda. We have a life in Bermuda. We were indentured servants on the island of Bermuda when the English came, and then the slave trade started to come through Bermuda. The ring then actually goes to America, where it's cut into 3 pieces, or the stone is cut into 3 pieces. One of the rings, one part of the stone ends up in Ruby's ring, and we actually own the other 2 parts of the stone because we found them.
That's amazing. So do
story
you
is-
have the whole stone, or are you missing one portion?
Part of it
We're
is on
missing
Ruby's
We're missing 2 portions now.
2
Okay.
portions. That's true. We found, yeah, one is in a chalice in Boston that was used by the church to mark the first Archbishop of Boston, and it's in his chalice. One part of the stone. One part of the stone is on Ruby's great granddaughter, and the other 2 rings we actually own.
And there's one more part you forgot. There's one piece that still sits in the scepter.
That's right.
You can Google Henry V scepter, and a piece of that stone is in the top of his scepter.
It's funny how this story kind of reminds me of Marie Antoinette and how this jewelry maker made this like very luxurious necklace for her, but the stones were too big, so he cut them down smaller, and then it was portioned out and sold separately and everything because she'd
Yes,
never wear
correct.
it. But it's amazing how they, the stone is original and then different people cut it up for different reasons. It's cool that you have so many pieces, only missing 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to
Yes.
get them?
Well, I don't think the church. I don't think
We're
the
not going to get it
Archbishop
from the
is-
Catholic Church, I doubt.
No,
We
not
gotta
now
put a
that
crew together.
Now,
Yeah.
we were both raised Catholic, so that's interesting. But no, I don't think the Catholic Church is still going to follow us on this reincarnation trip.
So I
It's
wonder
sort of-
if, is there any way to take the pieces you have and be in the presence of these other pieces? I just wonder what would happen, because it seems like, you're all entangled, you guys, the stone, a couple other people. I don't know, I just wonder what would happen if it was in one area at once.
That would be interesting. We've wanted to test all the pieces of the stone so we could prove that it was from the same stone. But again, getting all those people to bring the stones into one place would be difficult. And
In
again,
the back of, tell her about in the back of the book, Dave, how there's a separate little vignette inside of the first book.
it's the journey of the red ruby stone, and it's in the book.
Wow.
And it tells where the stone has been for 1,100 years. And the lives that follow through with the stone are amazing, and there's places that I didn't know existed. It's interesting. Ruby's great aunt that got the stone from a man named Silas. And Silas was a man that I shot in the Civil War. And then he gave that stone to Ruby. And then years later, I come around and meet Ruby again in a different life.
That's insane. Circles.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems to always go back to circles. Yeah, and pods and, like I said, synchronicities.
And we found synchronicities all across all of our lives. Again, we've had some of the same names. We've had children with the same names in some of the lives. We found people in this life just by coincidence and found out that they were our children in a different life.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Like, I know you.
Yeah, so again, that's this soul group. We actually have a neighbor, or used to be a neighbor, who was in 21 of our past lives. And he's always been somewhat of a karmic problem for us. Put an arrow through Carla 6,000 years ago.
Jeez. So a shitty neighbor.
Yeah, we're glad he moved.
He's the same now.
Yeah, he's in a little trouble now. But
he just shoots arrows with his eyes, with his dirty lips.
Mm-hmm. You got.
We've tried to be as supportive as we could so that we could get off this wheel again. Because the idea of trying to, again, retaliation does nothing good but cause both of you karma.
It's funny, and it makes me wonder, there's different reasons that we go through this karmic wheel and we're going through these different scenarios. And it makes you wonder, is it about the shitty asshole neighbor? Like, we got to help this guy out because he's never going to get through this on his own because he's so angry and set in his ways. For some reason, he's just, somebody peed in his Cheerios or something. I don't know what his deal is, but I think he needs help. Well, maybe it's all about the a-hole neighbor.
And
it is.
Yeah, and he was going through a divorce, and we tried to help and brought him soup and different things, trying to fix part of the problem, but he's not a happy man.
Yeah, he's like, get off my lawn. You're like, I just brought you soup.
Yeah, he's the guy who worries that you might mow over 3 feet onto his yard. So. Yeah,
God forbid you mow any part of his yard.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Exactly.
I'd say he could mow my entire yard. It would be okay.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Thank you. But we were talking on break. Okay, so I had an offer for free past life regression, and I have trust issues. I put up walls. I'm like, no, I don't need you walking around in my subconscious or knocking over a table or whatever in my head. So I've been worried about it, but you guys were telling me a few pointers about past life regression and about how you guys learned it and you use it with your family and loved ones. Could you tell our listeners what exactly happens? It is safe, it's not safe, so on and so forth, as far as past life regression goes?
Yeah, so the first thing you need to know is that you are still in control. Hypnosis is not like you see on TV. Nobody's going to tell you to quack like a duck unless you want to quack like a duck. So you're not going to do it. You can open your eyes at any time. The reason a past life regression therapist is nice to have there is that most people remember traumatic events in their past life first. And so they remember sometime they were shot or died because they drowned. And so it's nice to have somebody there who can talk you back down and discuss what happened and those kind of things with you. But the memories can happen. Whether you have somebody there, you can actually do a YouTube video if you're worried about doing it in front of somebody. The past life regression therapists, most of them are very wonderful people. They're just trying to help. They're trying to help you deal with issues that you may have. And sometimes dealing with your past life issues fixes a problem in this life, even if you don't aware that that's what's causing it. It's really peaceful talking. All of us get hypnotized every day. If you get in your car and you drive to work and the music's playing, do you suddenly just get to work and do you remember where you turned every corner? No.
I wish I
You
had a
turn
car.
automatic.
I'm just kidding.
There you go. But you drive naturally to the place. It's you're used to it. It happens. It becomes calm. And usually you try to do things like discuss that a warm light is coming over you, that you're comfortable, and that you're protected, that your spirit guide can be present there. Some past life regressionists will get you to meet your spirit guide, which will help because it starts to make it able to connect. That way, when you're meditating on your own, you can speak to your spirit guide, discuss those issues that are bothering you in life. All of you have this little spirit guide, this little voice in your head that you think is you, that's talking to you and saying, should you really steal that piece of gum?
Yeah.
When you're a 10-year-old, it's there.
Well, it's funny that you said that because, like, I hear people talking to me and I know it's not me, even though it comes through as my voice. I can tell by the different inflections and the way that they're saying things that it's not me. It's somebody else.
And you feel it more than you hear it.
And sometimes it almost sounds, it always seems this way to me, that it's a little more formal than I would think, that I would talk. Just a little. It's just that proper. It's a little proper, and that's sort of the way they come across, even though they can be very funny and joke with you and laugh with you. But some of the time it's very proper, and they're just trying to teach you the lesson. Think before you jump. Are you really going to make this mistake in this life? You know, some of the examples we give sometimes is, you know, you go to the grocery store and you're there at the grocery store and the clerk is rude and you want to get rude back. Realize if you do, you might have developed some karma, and now you're going to return in your next life with the same store clerk over and over again.
Or the same neighbor.
Or the same neighbor.
Yes. Mooney was saying earlier, I think in the next life I'll hire a different realtor or something because I got to get rid of this neighbor. But I think he just needs help. Even though he's like, get off my lawn and refusing and just like rude about the whole thing. I don't know. I think
he probably has some past karma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've actually done a podcast where we met a great-granddaughter, and she was telling us that she had a past life with a name like Angel, and we did not know and had not met the person that we called Angelica in that life.
Oh, wow.
Angelia.
And we were, Angelia. And we were sitting there going, oh my God, it is. It's her. And
yeah,
so,
it's like once you realize it, you totally see it. Like,
absolutely. And you can almost always see it in their eyes. There's something about the eyes that pull you in and you realize this is the person.
And it's funny that you say that because there is a familiarity in the eyes, like we were talking about meeting people and feeling like you've known them forever, even though you've never met before. But looking in their eyes, sometimes there's that familiarity. Even though the body has changed, the eyes kind of remain the same. And people talk about the eyes being the gateway to the soul or whatnot. So it's pretty interesting.
It's all very interesting, and it all follows when you start getting into this a long ways. The things that you've been hearing just start to flow, and you start to see things like how the lessons work, how karma works, how these people keep flowing back with you. You know, for some of the people, like when we were doing the research on our second book, Hell No, Reincarnation, if you look at Bible stories, there are certainly statements in there that everybody who knows about reincarnation will say that Elijah was John the Baptist. There's a quote in there, and Jesus says, yes, John was Elijah. That's one of them. But if you actually look at the Old Testament talks about God making 5 covenants, one with Adam, one with Moses, one with King David, one with Abraham, another one, my brain won't remember at the moment, but each time God makes a covenant, the Hebrew people fall apart and do all sorts of terrible things and fall away from God, and God gives them another chance and gives them another covenant. Sounds a lot like the same story as reincarnation. If you look at the book of Leviticus, it was written originally in Aramaic. The word for sin in Aramaic is not sin where you did something bad.
Mm-hmm.
In Aramaic, the word is kata, spelled Khata. And kata means you failed to reach your goal. So the book of Leviticus, you fell short. And so you had to return. You had to do an atonement. That's what the book of Leviticus is about. You fell short and you have to do an atonement. The stories follow there. They follow Hindu religion too. It follows through that karma follows and you have to try to raise yourself up. Buddhists who really don't believe in God but believe that they still have to grow through all these lessons till they can reach nirvana or their highest state. Muslims, actually a sect of them called Druze. They believe in reincarnation. 33% of the world's population believes in reincarnation. Interesting, the polls, if they're true, 20% of Christians believe in reincarnation. I don't know how you believe in reincarnation and say you're Christian exactly. Because reincarnation basically is nobody's coming to save you. You need to save yourself. Now, we did learn a lesson while we were doing all this. Isabella, Jesus, and Muhammad only had one life. They got it right the first time. So Jesus is certainly an example of how to live a loving life and make the right decisions. Because if you do, you can survive and you don't have to reincarnate.
Yeah, even though, he was a kid and stuff, one of my favorite stories was he was playing with his friend, and I think they were on a barn or something like that, and he pushed his friend off the side of the barn, and his friend died, and then I think that was his first time he ever brought somebody back from the dead, and he felt really bad about it. Like, he didn't think that would happen, but then he realized things. I mean, he was human too, even though he was here to teach us a bunch of different lessons, but there's so many different amazing things. Some things ring to me, some things don't, because I think that people have put in as well as omitted things due to the will of man. So I don't know if you guys heard, but even though I'm not Catholic, I'm really excited about the prospect that they're going to retranslate it and put it in its truest form. And I'm just because I know there are things in there that are true, but there are things that have been taken out and things that have been added. So I'm just excited to see what original was.
One of the good examples is the Hebrew word that was there in the Bible was young maid, which you could assume was a virgin, but not necessarily a young maid yet not married. And that word became translated as virgin. And so, you start to look at those kind of things in the Bible. Then if you look at, because we did some of the other research, in 200 AD, Origen of Alexandria, Egypt, was a Hebrew scholar who wrote almost all of the early Catholic Church doctrine. And when he wrote his writing, he said the soul could transmigrate from life to life. And he said that Jesus was created by God, not the same substance as God. Now, 200 years later, he was excommunicated from the church after he was already dead. And his writing...
He's already dead. Why even do it? Oh my gosh.
Why, because...
To take away that power that he had from writings or whatnot.
Yes, they had to take the power away because the story, the church can't control you if you're going to come back anyway. You can't force, a doctrine on somebody that says if you don't do this, you're going to hell. If you're going to really come back and reincarnate again, there's no punishment, there's no fear, there's no control. And again, Isabella says, why would God plan that you would be controlled and couldn't choose love? And so, again, those stories follow with all of the reincarnation kind of stories that we keep telling. We have, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, because I was thinking before our show about different questions, different ideals and such, following different reincarnations, and one of the ones that really, hit me hard was Joan of Arc. I wonder if she's been reincarnated, and if so, I wonder who she is, and does she have the same ideals? So, have you guys ever looked at somebody in history that was not related to you and tried to follow their reincarnation at any point, or...
Our third book has 3 sets of people in history that Ella went through, tried examples of how people change from life to life, how the karma follows life to life, how their astrological signs change life to life. We actually have Henry VIII in the book. What he did before that life, his life as Henry, and his life after Henry. Which astrological signs he was, what traits he had, how his personality followed, and how the karma followed, so that we can kind of give people a way to look at some of this.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Napoleon. So that's one everybody will know too, so that they can see what Napoleon was before, what Napoleon was life as Napoleon, and what happened to Napoleon after that life.
And here's a good one. We have Cleopatra.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I have to read it. It's funny. I just recently learned, even though they refer to short guys with dudes or, short fuses as Napoleon syndrome.
Napoleon complex. Yes.
Yeah. Napoleon syndrome, Napoleon complex. Napoleon really wasn't that short. He was actually taller than me, and I'm just like, I don't know.
5'8" or something.
Yeah, I always imagine him as like 5'2" or something, like this little short guy trying to be boosted up his horse or whatnot, and he's actually taller than the guy that I dated when I was 16. That I swear to God, if anybody was reincarnated as Napoleon, it was that guy.
Well, funny. Napoleon did a lot of hard, terrible things that people don't know, including a form of genocide where he put gas down into boats when he was transporting enemies, and it's
slaves.
almost Hitler-like what he did.
Yeah, what an ass.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so
totally.
You'll be happy to know his life after that wasn't that great.
So did you guys figure out, I know that you have it in your book, but I'm just curious. Have you figured out who it is? Is it
not
just kidding.
It's not your friend from high school, but it might be. I can't tell you. I don't know I don't know who he is now. And I know this is strange, but if it was, I wouldn't tell you because it would still be some sort of privacy issue for him.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about, we were talking about karma and going down through generations, and people talk of family curses, and then you hear about scientists or whoever talking about how these curses are actually intertwined in your DNA. Is that true? Is there such thing as a family curse, or is it just karma coming back through the revolutions? What exactly is going on with that, do you think?
Well, remember that sometimes with your reincarnation, you actually back through bloodlines. And let's say that you're an alcoholic, and then you come back 2 lives later, and you've passed
your son became an
alcoholism.
alcoholic. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And now you've passed it on. So that could be a family curse because it's in the blood. And then you've got environmental tendencies, like we say in the 3rd book, your astrological sign, your trait, and your archetype make up like 45 to 50% of the way you act. And then environment is maybe 10%. And then free will is the remainder, another between 45% or something like that. So, part of it is you, but it could be your karma that you're bringing with you.
And I do think there's a lot of people who reincarnate in their families down the line. And so breaking some of those, if you want to call it curse, I don't know if it's a curse, but abuse follows family lines, alcoholism follows family lines. So if you had an alcoholic father and you became alcoholic, and then your son is going to have to deal with an alcoholic father, somewhere somebody has to break the cycle, and that's part of that, and that's part of the karma. So that happens, and then there's something else called soul memory that happens, and it's a really interesting concept. They've done research on this too. This is Ian Stevenson and those guys again. Some people actually have scars in the same place where they died from a gunshot wound.
That's one of my questions for you. Like, when you got shot, when you were dating the flapper or trying to date that really gorgeous flapper over there, when you were reborn, did you have birthmarks or any sort of signs of where you got shot?
Actually, he did. You did in this life.
Wow. I've heard about that.
He had a valve. He was actually shot in the heart, and he had a valve replacement in this life because it weakened.
Wow.
And here's another example for you. In our very last life, Dave and I were brother and sister. I was 6 and he was 4. And our father was a fighter pilot in World War II. And our mother was home with us. He was away. And we were playing on a 3-story balcony. It was Christmas Eve. She was wrapping presents. And we fell to our deaths, both of us. We broke our necks. And if you can imagine, Dave and I both have issues with our necks in this life. We both go to chiropractors and massage therapists because you do carry that soul memory with you.
I'll tell you,
the
most interesting thing, and Carla does not really look pigeon-toed, but she thinks
I'm not pigeon-toed. I'm knock-kneed.
She's like, quit saying that.
She doesn't really look knock-kneed that much, but because I went back through all these past lives and looked at Carla, in the 1700s, she was thrown out of a wagon and injured herself, broke her pelvis, and since 1700, she's had knock-knees in all of her lives.
She's like, quit saying that.
No, because you're going to love this one. Talk about the synchronicities. My husband then that threw me out of the wagon, and yeah, well, I married him again.
Jeez.
Here.
You didn't learn the first time.
But wait till you hear this one. Speaking of short men who have complexes, we talked about Ruby, the flapper, and her boss was actually the gangster, Angelo Jenna. And who was Angelo Jenna in this life? My first husband. And when you put the pictures together, they look alike. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Amazing. Uh-huh. It's interesting.
With different stars like Matthew McConaughey, I think
they have a doppelganger picture of
yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, it looks like them, but there's differences like the attachment of the ear, maybe the nose a tiny bit different, but everything else it looks exactly like them. So that really makes you think about past lives too. How many times have we regenerated, and do we always look the same? I don't think so. You know, sometimes
we don't always look the same. That's also in book 3. But a lot of times, I know that particular thing that was on Facebook you're talking about where they showed Matthew McConaughey with that other guy. And sometimes it's a pod brother or a pod sister. And that's why they don't look exactly alike, but they're very similar. We actually hired a girl in the office. This was many years ago. And people started to ask me, is Brandy your daughter? And then they would ask her, is Carla your mother? And it went on, and that was right at the beginning. And then we finally asked, and we found out that she's my pod sister, and she's a lot younger than me, but she looks very similar to the way I did when I was her age. And that's the truth with pod brothers and pod sisters. You look very similar, and you have very similar personalities. Of course, your astrological sign, your trait, and your archetype enter into it too, plus, your 10%, your environment. But yes, that's very true.
Yeah, we find a lot of people that we know from past lives that keep showing up in our life. And Tom, Carla's husband, has been in 16, I think, of her past
16.
lives.
And I've also been his mother, especially in this life.
Yeah, really? I feel you, sister.
Yeah. I've been his mother
swear to
several
God.
times.
I only had 4 kids, not 5, okay? So give me a freaking break here.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. Well, when's his birthday?
December 22nd.
December. Well, he's a cusp. He's, I mean, you guys should be getting along pretty good on the
I'm November
Sagittarian
26th.
side. Yeah.
So I think I'm a cusp too, right? Or
You're almost a cusp.
You're a few days in, but he's, he's close to Capricorn too. Capricorns like to be waited on.
Yeah, something about Capricorns. I don't know.
Doesn't that mean they both have the unforgiveness thing?
Oh, yeah. Both of you.
Are you very good at fights?
Oh, you know what used to drive me crazy? How calm he'd stay. It's like, if you really cared, you'd react, but he's just like, calm and peaceful, and it's like, would you just fight with me for a second? That'd be nice to get some reciprocation here. But yeah, so calm and smooth and collected, and it's just mind-blowing.
Well, he was thinking.
So you guys
he just knows how irritating it is. Go ahead.
You guys probably had multiple lives together since you're doing well this one.
Oh, I never said that. But yeah, I could see it because it's the same thing when you meet certain people. Like my mentor, I felt like in a past life she could have been like my mom or my sister or something. She ended up dying from cancer with Vern. When I met him, it was like, I knew this person. And even before I met him, this is a really weird thing. I'm getting ready to go out this night, and I was actually dating a guy that I called the psycho fisherman at the time. And we were kind of separated. And I just needed to get out. It was my friend's birthday, and he had gone out and listened to his uncles play in a band. And I was like, man, I love music, and I just need to get out. I've been trapped in this house for so long. On the res at the bottom of Sleeping Ute Mountain, but I did escape. And before I even met this guy, I'm getting ready, and the thought kept going through my head, I'm going to meet my husband tonight. I'm going to meet my husband. I wonder what he's like. I wonder what he looks like. And it's so funny because not my type, as far as looks and stuff, but as far as character, totally bomb. But yeah, I just knew that I was going to meet him, and I was looking around, like, trying to figure out who this person is, and once I met him, I knew. So I think it was, like you said, a past life thing. I knew I was going to connect with him that night, and so I was just, like, so excited, and it was crazy. When I got there, they were playing country. Go ahead.
Maybe your spirit guide was
telling you in your ear.
Yeah, I think it was.
You might meet him now.
Yeah, I think it was my spirit guide or my mom or somebody kept telling me. But it's directed towards me as if it was myself. I'm going to meet my husband tonight, repeatedly. I wonder what he looks like. I wonder what he's like. And so it was just, like, exciting. And so many random different crazy things happened that night that made it, like, almost impossible to get there. But everything worked out. But yeah, it's been interesting. So who knows what's going to happen with that. It's pretty intriguing.
No coincidences in life.
Yeah, and nothing's by accident. Everything happens for a reason, no matter how good or poopy. You realize things, and you might not see it at first, but eventually you do. Oh, this is why this happened, or this is why that happened. If you're aligned or whatnot, I've realized so many different things in my life, and I'm happy at the point that I'm at right now, with all the knowledge that I have. But yeah, the world is, I don't know how you guys feel, but it feels like everything's kind of chaotic.
Well,
it's very chaotic.
You know, this is another one of those lessons we like to tell people, but remember the state of the world that it is. Not only are you leaving this world to your kids, you could be leaving this world to you. Mm-hmm. So we have to start changing something. Because it's not getting better, but sort of it is getting better. I have to. There's a lot of people focusing on love and light and those kind of things now, and actually, even though with what we see on the media, we're actually in the most peaceful time in the world's history. Less people dying at war than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some lessons that are being done, and people are improving.
No, they're just killing each other in the house because we've been stuck together for a year.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
pretty crazy you said that, Carla, because it has been proven, and I actually had a social worker tell me that the increase in domestic violence and child abuse has increased because people are
Yes.
stuck at home and they've lost their jobs
it.
and there's so much stress and chaos and how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to feed the family? And it's just really insane. And not only that, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the paranormal has really peaked as well as UFO sightings for me. It just seems like everything's coming together. It's just kind of colluding and squashing together. But it's very mind-bending.
You're obviously very open.
Yeah, Tessa, this is one of the things when people start talking about some of the paranormal ghosts. Isn't it really possible that you're just spiritually connected?
Well, yeah, I know that. I've known that all my life, and even my kids and even my husband has some of it. But it's like this house is a lighthouse. Things come here, and they'll cross through. Some things stay. The only one ghost that we have that is residential is John, who died here from emphysema, and he's a really cool guy. I dig him. But there's different random things that come through. Sometimes it's darker. Sometimes it's all right. It just really depends. But it just has really increased within the last year and a half. It's really gone up. It's insane. Like, I've seen so many spirits throughout my life, and then on Halloween of last year, I saw more spirits in one night than I did throughout my whole life. So it was just, like, weird. And then the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of stuff going on as far as not only shadow people, but dark orbs and dark streaks and stuff. And I'm not scared. I don't feel fearful or like they're trying to attack me, but I think different things are being woken up.
I don't think any of them can hurt you.
No.
None of them. None of them can. You're protected. You have spirit guides. You have other people that have passed in your life that can act as gatekeepers and keep all negative energy away. However, you got to realize those people that are waiting to come back, they want to influence the world they're going to come to. So if they've died and they're waiting to come back, they may try to reach the person who's open-minded, who's open spiritually, because they can influence what may happen in their world to come. So those people that you like to call dark people are really people who just have to have another life, and they don't want to leave heaven.
And
Yeah,
they're
and I don't
dark
think they're
because
bad.
They carry negative energy.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it could be because I've seen different kind of orbs. I've captured pictures, but I've actually seen them, and I saw one that was really big, and it was a dark color. And for me, I think that was just an earthbound spirit, and we've talked a lot about free will. And that's a big thing. A lot of people wonder, well, shouldn't they be in heaven or hell or something? Like, why are these things still here? Well, they have free will. If they want to stay here for some certain reason, they can. If it's due to their beliefs of purgatory or whatnot, they could be stuck. Like, there's so many different variations of what could be going on with this certain spirit or individual. So it's very intriguing, and I just love the story, like figuring out the puzzle and trying to help this person. But we do have to go to our break. We are late. On this break, we do have Michaelan Hay again with Pins and Needles, Mirror, and Gravity. And then we have Mr. Fred Johnson, the Toid. He's one of my favorites. I love this guy. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Talking on pins and needles, every word through a microscope. You keep stomping down on the ground while I've been stuck on this tightrope. I just wanna say what I wanna say without your sentence. I'm not willing to do the time when I'm innocent, and I'm innocent. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm wanna say what I wanna say, don't need permission. Interpret it how you want, it's my decision. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Dancing on shattered glass, kicking the pieces all around. My safety has been broken, this is now a hunting ground. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, 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 up. I dove right in. Didn't bring a parachute. Fell right through. Hit the water hard. Moving too fast. Spiraling out of control. Was touch and go. Went a little far. You taught me how to turn a blind eye. I showed you how to keep a shoulder cold. No one walked away without
series of pursuit. No matter what I say after dark, I gave her face because she had the range. I knew she was the one that never could go home again. Plastic life by limo seats. I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah, living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Changes in the sky, murder forever after. No matter what I say after dark. Feeling ran to arguments and fear. Hiding place with days of December. Concerning works or pushed in the bandage. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuit. No matter what I say. Chariots in the sky, murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say after dark.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are joined by Dave and Carla. Welcome back, you guys, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure, Tessa.
Yeah, we're talking about internal clocks and such. Oh my.
Yes, the internal clocks. So that brings up something that at least will bring up this theory, because there are other reincarnation people who have experiences where they don't think time is linear. I will just tell you that all of our past lives are linear. They don't overcross. There's been 42 and 6,000 years. Because of karma, cause and effect has to happen. If there is no cause and effect, then there is no reason. And there are those past life people who have experiences who think that we're all here just to experience and that life really doesn't have a meaning. But it does. It has some meaning. It has to have some meaning. And part of our lessons through all of this is that what you do to people does matter. How you treat people matters. And if you're conceited, or you're the controller in the relationship, or then you're going to come back in another life where somebody's going to try to control you.
I'm the people pleaser, so hopefully somebody will please me next life. It's like I have to make everybody feel better. I want to please people. I'm the people pleaser. But I've learned I have to take care of myself. If I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Tessa, that was one of the lessons that Isabella told us really early on, is that if you don't take care of yourself, you're really being selfish.
Yeah,
that means,
and you don't realize it, but yeah, that's true.
But you're leaving it to somebody else to take care of you. If you don't take care of your health, you'll get sick earlier. You'll use up the resources because it'll take more health care to take care of you when you're older. all of those things. So you have to take care of yourself. Tessa, this is just another interesting thing because we started all of our trip on a meditation trip, and it really did change the way we looked at things and how we felt, all the lessons that we learned. But in meditation, again, the doctor and me started to do the research, and it lowers blood pressure, lowers blood sugar, decreases anxiety. It literally makes you happier because your dopamine levels go up.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you sleep better because your melatonin levels go up. It actually drops your cortisol. The first year I meditated, I tried to be my better self, but also because the cortisol dropped, I lost 2 pounds a week for 52 weeks in a row.
Wow. And you're still here.
And I'm still, yes. So not only was I large and unhappy and unhealthy, which is not the right thing to do as a doctor, but my patients saw me change. My patients started losing 30, 40 pounds, all started getting better. Actually, I have a good Lutheran friend who had a foot problem that was a significant problem, and he was having trouble. He's a Lutheran minister. And actually, he was having so many problems in his marriage that we started talking a lot of religion, meditation, all those kind of things. And he started putting them in some of his sermons. And then he started to get into it again. And then as he got happy, his foot healed.
That's interesting. And you're talking about these different things that are released when you're meditating. And I find it so hard because, due to COVID, I'm homeschooling. So I'm the homeschool teacher. I'm the preacher. I'm the cafeteria lady. I'm the recess person. Like, I do all these different jobs now, and it's insane. But for me, it's just like, so I made a joke about it. I have a hard time being still, quieting my mind. All throughout my life, my bedtime's been about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning due to paranormal experiences and such. And I've known so many people that do meditate, and there are times where I just kind of zone out and nothing's going on. I'm just like in that And I made a joke the other day, and they're like, "Mom, are you okay? What's going on?" I was like, "Yeah, I was just meditating." When in reality, I was just zoning out. But for me, that is my version of meditation, even though I'm not in the nirvana position and I'm not listening to binaural beats and doing all these different things.
Right.
Recording in a diary what you guys see while you're meditating is awesome because in the past 2 years, everybody's been having lucid and vivid dreams. We've been talking about keeping dream diaries, but meditation, it's important to keep a diary of that as well because, man, look at all the different things you found. It's so insane. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and so that's why we started teaching meditation. And here's an interesting idea for you because you have 4 kids at home. You can get 20 minutes of quiet if you teach them to meditate at the same time.
Ooh. I know, and I think that could help so much, especially with my youngest that had the past life experience, and she's just so passionate and has no fear except for spiders and death. But otherwise she's just fearless and she's got this high passion and high anger and high everything. It's just like amplified. And I was thinking about that the other day. What if we did, instead of like a recess break or whatever, we did a meditation break or something like that? Like that would be interesting to see what could happen, because if you kind of still your mind and you're able to calm things, it could put so many things in perspective, whether it's paranormal or subconscious or anger or whatever's going on, high energy.
There's schools that have implemented that. Instead of time out, they go into meditation. And of course they're sitting and they have peaceful music and they're quiet, and all kinds of things can happen in your subconscious when you allow that. Perhaps your daughter would remember more.
Yeah, and it's cool because like when she was a year and a half old, that's when she was telling me about her past life, and then she's heard me on the show because she'll come in here sometimes. I'm amazed that so far tonight nobody's come in during our show because there's at least like 4 or 5 break-ins. But yeah, she's heard me talk about it and she's like, I don't remember any of that. So perhaps if we did meditate or whatnot, she might remember some more of it. I don't know if that would be a good thing for her to remember, but it's interesting to me. All my kids, we were talking about birthmarks and different things. You were talking about his aortic valve or whatnot in his heart. All of them have like a diamond shape, and even I did as a kid on the back of my neck. But each kid that I've had on their face has, they call them stork bites. So Kinsey, hers was pretty, pronounced in her forehead and over her eyes. And then Nova, she had a rooster, which her dad is a cock due to the, Chinese zodiac. Plus, he's a cock.
Good save.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
so-
just interesting, but diamond-shaped scars
Right on the back of the neck, where the
are
spine
usually
meets the skull.
associated with a stab wound.
Okay.
So
We've all had that in
interesting.
me and all my kids, and then they also have the stork bite on the front, so maybe that's going from the back to the front or the front to the back. Because I've thought
Yeah.
about, gun wounds or spear or knife wounds.
Yeah. Spears.
But yeah, Nova had a rooster, Floyd had a dragon, and synchronicity, he was also the year of the dragon on the Chinese zodiac. So he had a dragon that went across his forehead. And then Lily had a check. Vern tried to say it's a V because, I stamped that and I approve. Even though he's like, how the hell did that happen? How do you think it happened? But yeah, check mark, check. We're good. I think that meant we're good as far as kids, but it's amazing the similarities in birthmarks for all of us. And then the wounds on the face as well. So I'm just curious about that. Could it be due to, like you said, the trauma going through the back to the front or the front to the back?
Absolutely, because those things follow you. This is a sort of a different thing that we've been working on a little bit. There are a lot of people doing sort of research on people that look alike in past lives. Interestingly enough, not every soul enters the baby at the same time. And so if your soul enters early in the gestation, your soul has more time before birth to impart soul memory on your appearance than if it enters the body just before birth. That brings up.
Explain, Dave, why that would happen. Why they would enter at different times.
Well, again, we've told you all of this is coordinated. So, of course, you might have to wait because you need to come back in the right astrological sign because that matches up with your karma. So, if the soul entered the wrong person or the wrong thing at the wrong time, you'd be born at the wrong time. And so you wouldn't have the right astrological sign. So that's one of them. You also have to come to the right parent, which may have the right system set up so that you can be with the right people so that you can deal with the right karma. The other thing that matters there, though, is most mothers know this because they've had an ultrasound and all those kind of things. We actually differentiate ourselves much earlier in the gestation. And as you get later in the gestation, it's whatever the DNA would say. So if your soul entered early, you could look more like you did in a past life than you do if your soul enters late. Because if it enters late, you're going to look like your mother. Because that DNA would be the only DNA affecting your appearance, not the DNA affected by your soul.
That's so funny. Okay, so I look like my mom. All of my girls, except for my oldest, look the same. And I've actually showed pictures to Lily, and I was like, who's this? And she's like, that's me. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's Nova. No, it's not. It's me. And she gets so furious about it. But it's really her big sister who is...
They may be all in the same pod.
Yeah, she's going to be 17 here on the 12th. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. She's even surprised because she's been like, 2 more years and I'm out of here. Surprise, you only have about a year now, sister.
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting to me. Okay, so as far as names go, you know, when I had my first child, I'm looking through all the baby books, looking for the best name. I picked Mackenzie later among women, which is what my patriarchal blessing said for me and my sister and everything. I think we're supposed to be here to lead women and men, but mostly, you know, as far as the patriarchal thing goes, you know, women are just this certain species, so we can only lead other women. But I think we're here to lead people and help people. Yeah, of all genders and specificities. But as far as Nova goes, I didn't even go through a book to find her name. It just came to me. Her name is Nova, which is my grandma's name, Nova Rose O'Brien. And I named her Nova and then Joanne after her grandma from her dad's side. But, oh my gosh, the resemblance as far as height, looks, foot size, like she's a snowshoe rabbit. It's amazing how they take after these people from the past. Is it reincarnation? Even Lily, I named her after my great-grandma on my mom's side, even though I never knew this woman. Lily was the name that came to me. I'm not looking for it. It just came to me. They named themselves, I kind of figure. Or my spirit guide told me.
Or your spirit guide did?
Yeah.
You know, Tessa,
Do the timelines line up? Could Nova be your grandmother? Was your grandmother already passed?
Yeah, my grandma died very early of cancer. I think I was like 5 or 6 when she passed, so I had a lot of death during that time in my life. But yeah, she passed away at that time. But yeah, I didn't look in any books or anything. It just came to me. Her name is Nova, and it's amazing to me how much she takes after her as far as looks and size. And because Nova came from Canada, she was a very tall, I want to say husky woman. Not that she was heavy set, but we have broad shoulders and we have that kind of weightlifter prospect as far as our rib cage and our shoulders are wide, but our midsection is skinny, and then we have big hips. And I've been accused of being a weightlifter throughout my life, and I'm like, no, I don't, but thanks. But it's that the way you carry everything. It's interesting how she carries the gene of Nova. Like, I don't know. I didn't expect that. I thought that's cool. And
how old is she? How old's Nova?
She's going to be 17 on the 12th.
So, do you have a picture of your grandmother?
Oh yeah, I do. Not with me right now. If I had my old phone with me, I could
try to put them side by side. Try to put them side by side and email them to us.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to get one of her earlier pictures. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. This only because this is sort of on the same topic. There is a life that we have that is in 600 BC on the Isle of Lesbos, and I'm about to go to in Greece. Up the off coast.
Yeah,
of Greece.
I have grease toes, not greasy toes, but I have the second toe longer than the first.
The European toe. There you go.
Yeah, Mediterranean. I call it the Mediterranean toe. I can not only pinch you but throw rocks.
Anyway, that life is very interesting because, I guess the right way is that Carla was impregnated and I went off to war and died and then was reborn as her son.
Wow.
9 months later.
9 months later.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different things that can happen in this reincarnation thing.
Yeah, and it is very cool. Like, people, like you were saying earlier, are taken from us as far as kidnapped, and people have issues with that in their current lives as far as separation issues, so on and so forth. And then you have this husband that went away to war, and then he died, and then he comes back as his son or daughter or whatnot. For me, that's just intriguing. It's like you have a mission to complete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we and the things that amaze me sometimes is we found a life that is 3,700 BC, and we were shepherds. And I knew my owner was a Thracian warrior. Now, I didn't know what a Thracian warrior was.
Yeah, you had to Google it.
Nor did I.
Yeah.
Yes, we Googled.
So I thought, what's a Thracian warrior?
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
and Thrace, and the neighbors that were also herdsmen and whatever, their owners were Thracian warriors. And we looked it up, and Thrace was a land that used to be northern Greece, northern a portion of Turkey, and a portion of Bulgaria. And it ceased to exist 3,500 BC. But before that, these clansmen were all like little kingdoms, and the Thracian warrior was the big strong guy who had the sword, and he literally protected his little clan, and the next little clan was next door. And when some of this past life stuff happens, we learned history that we didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. And those kind of things always interest me too. And we became more and more history buffs because we'd find a life and we'd find something out about it, and we'd have to go try to find out where it was, what was happening.
Yeah, I love history, and I feel bad because during my school years, I had a teacher that was Mountain, and it period hours always follows history. History Channel is one of my favorite things. Discuss like history. I love learning from it because I do believe that history does repeat itself. We got circles going, circles. So we need past, and that's what frustrates me so much with what's going on today. We're different news and different things that insult people. Tear down and try to get about it. Are we supposed to learn from it? Seuss. Okay, not all of us, and I've said, fuck you, it's insulted by Dr. Seuss. That's when I first learned to read, and so different lessons. It's amazing. And I'm trying to culminate in my mind, okay, what exactly did you do that was racist and so forth? There were some people at the zoo that were wearing African attire and their hair was up this certain way. Yes, there's people and there's different cultures. Why are you in this? Because somebody is appearing this way. Maybe it's a specific person from this specific continent. Who knows? If you got 6 books on that list, make sure you save, put it on eBay, Amazon, whatever, you can sub now. But it's like, why are we trying to wipe away history? We've done it repeatedly. So many even huge cities that we even knew existed until the satellite map said, oh, a huge city right here next to you. Whatever exists, we wipe away history. We get rid of it. We don't learn, so we're doomed to repeat our mistakes. To me, it's just, why? I don't know. Why do we have to do this? Because it's hurt. No, yet that's it. And grow, adapt, and overcome.
Yes, that's really the lesson of reincarnation, is we're the same mistakes. We're all still on the same cycle. We haven't fixed it. And there's also such a thing as group karma, where, entire religion and these are fighting. In the Hell No Reincarnation, actually talk about, if you want to go back to what we learned in history, what caused this to happen? Did persecution of the Jews at the Roman time lead to the Holocaust? Because we started destroying a whole group of people. Then it led up to all groups of people. Then it led to war that destroyed thousands of people. Are we really learning any lessons from these things or not? And do we really want to get a world that has more war?
Okay.
Or greed? Or conceit? And is a king from a past life in feudal times when he had serfs that did all the work on the farm be different than the CEO that everybody else do all the work?
Right, instead of being the ruler and you could be a cat or bird in the next life, that'd be nice. My pets are treated not like other people, their pets and them. Maybe not.
Okay,
if I got me, I'd be good. If I was feeding their powder and stuff, good.
So tell me interesting, which is animals do not have to reincarnate. They don't have any lessons to learn. They're the way they are. And for a reason this is, well, they instinct alone. So they live the way they're meant to live. The other thing that's true is that spirit exists, that you can't a soul and short life. It's always this karma. So if you had a soul, we would be vegetarian.
It's funny, and I'm sorry if I'm I think you're breaking up, so I'm sure if you're talking about, but so I've experienced paranormal throughout my life, mostly when I was 21, maybe 20 years after it happened. I had that. And recently, this last year, we were driving home. There's a deer that crossed, and at first it looked like deer, but then the rest of the streak like this colored light streak. And I was like to my husband, "It just I appeared as it, and I braced myself and acted, and it's just." And he's like, too. So I never really thought about spirits or as far as animals and plants. You know, I've seen. Or not only plants, but trees. So I think that everything is separate, and I'm not sure if there's different levels of a spirit. I believe that we all have an intelligence, or I educate my animals, like a bird, cat, dog, or the time.
But we say they have sight, so become to another could connect with the spirit of a deer that is running like all deers run, because when they're done with this life, they're going to go back to heaven, and they're going to run and play and do deer things, just like your dog runs and does deer things. But animals don't have to reincarnate, don't have to have another life. No problem. Do you want us to turn ours off too?
No, it sounds good right now. Once I turned off my camera, it seems like everything's working fine, so don't worry about that. You had mentioned earlier, Dave, to Carla about the 5 simple rules. So Carla, could you cue us in on that?
On the 5 simple rules, well, that's what we were talking about earlier. The 5 simple rules for living are to live without conceit, jealousy, selfishness, always live with forgiveness, and always live and act and choose in love.
That's awesome. It kind of reminds me of some of my learnings when I was baptized into the Mormon Church, and one of the articles of faith that I was required to memorize was to strive to be honest, true, chaste, benevolent, virtuous, and to do good unto all men. And for me, that has been one of my number one cardinal rules. And especially, a lot of people don't believe in Jesus because his birthday is not exactly the right date and all this other stuff, but he's my big brother, and I really look up to him, and I try to live my life according to what he did, not judging, accepting others. Like, he was friends with thieves and prostitutes and whatever else. He didn't care. He's friends with everyone. The only time I remember him getting pissed off is when they were setting up tables in the church and stuff on Sundays. But otherwise, it's just like, I don't know, I just try to be calm and peaceful. I try to love others as I would love myself, and I try to help people as much as I can, and not to a fault. I've learned not to do that after 42 years on this earth. Like, I have to take care of myself, or else I can't take care of others. And that's what I was lacking throughout most of my life. Like I said earlier, I've always tried to be a people pleaser, and for me, it's all about trying to help and please people. And yes, that is important, but like you guys said earlier, make sure you take care of yourselves. A lot of us have hard issues trying to meditate. So could you give us some key pointers on how we could still our minds and how we can actually do this?
Sure. I'm going to say one other thing, Tessa, real quick. If you look historically, I don't think you can deny that Jesus had a life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the Bible. There's many other sources that talk about Jesus' existence. Josephus was a Jewish historian at the time and wrote about Jesus' life. And there's much writing that occurred at that time, so that I don't think we can say that Jesus didn't have a life. So I'll just point
Yeah, but
that
some
out.
people do. I'm just like, oh my gosh, how could you say that about my big brother? Oh my gosh.
So with meditation, the story really comes down to you have to sit in a comfortable position, one that doesn't require sitting in lotus position on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit upright in a chair. You know, we did meditation at senior centers, and we had people that were 85 years old doing meditation. It's not comfortable for them to get on the floor or even be able to get back up off the floor.
Yeah.
So you just need to sit in a comfortable position. The easiest thing is to put calming music that you can't sing to, so you don't start thinking about the words. It's really imagining warm light making you comfortable, feeling peaceful. Start to breathe in and out, even counting your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Start to be aware that there is something there that is not you. You start to feel that in the darkness that something exists that you can see, feel, and experience. And as soon as you're aware that that other part that's not you is you, you start to become aware. And during that awareness, you can start to see visions. You can see colors. Some of the early times we were meditating, we started to see colors. And we realized that those are the angels that were talking to us or trying to, because you'll see pink and red,
Mm-hmm.
purple, because all angels have a base color of purple. You'll start to experience that there is something, it's spiritual, that's on the other side. Those things all become important. Even for you who believes in some of your paranormal experiences, the reality of spirits on the other side or non-physical beings that actually communicate with us, whether it's an animal you see, somebody's aura that you experience, it's something you're seeing in your mind. And so when you're meditating, you can see those same things. And you're experiencing that this life does not end, that there are reasons that we're here, that there is a purpose. Even if you want to discuss and argue that there is a God, this didn't all happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Someone coordinates this. And when we say someone, we start identifying them so much as a human that we start to think of God as an old man who sits on a throne up in heaven.
Well, it's funny because, like, okay, I've always believed in God, and then I do believe there's a heavenly mother, but God has kept her out of everything because look at how we use his name in vain. Imagine if we disrespected his wife. So, there is a scripture that talks about me, you, he, she, we, us. They're talking about male and female. That's the only time they really talk about a heavenly mother and heavenly father. For me, it's intriguing. But yeah, I do believe there's a higher
really
power.
Interesting. It's really interesting if you go back to Hebrew and God. So first I'll tell you, God's told us that he is also she, because God is complete in all ways. And if you go back to early Hebrew literature, they used to pray, and we're not supposed to really use the name of she,
Mm-hmm.
but they had a pole that they put outside of everybody's home, and it was the pole of she.
Mm-hmm.
In the Hebrew history.
She
And
does
so
exist. I have to tell you guys,
exist.
she does.
She does. We agree.
And it's intriguing to me. Okay, here's a thought during our last few moments here. Okay, so God created man, and I think it's a sense of like curiosity, trying to figure himself out and then watch and learn through us who he actually is. That's a thought. Did he create us so he could learn about himself? I don't know.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to tell you what we've learned. The human species is an evolving animal.
Mm-hmm.
And as an evolving animal, we come through that period of time where self-preservation is the most important part. And without that, we would not survive. And so man really has to learn to let go of self-preservation, which is really what the ego is based in.
Mm-hmm.
Until we can really let that go, we can't truly love, because we are still selfish, jealous of what others have. We're conceited because we think we're important. And so man has to go through all of those things to let them go.
And some of us are backwards. Like I said about myself earlier, I've always been a people pleaser, and I've always run every aspect of my life out just to try to help and please people. And then I learned, after being so drained, where I just wanted to sleep forever, and I still feel like I just need to sleep for like 5 years and I'll be okay. But you have to preserve yourself, you have to take care of yourself, or you can't take care of others. But I think some of us go, like you said, the primal thing of the ego and self-preserve. Some of us are built differently, and we have to learn to go the other direction, hopefully not too far. But it is a learning process for all of us, and I do truly believe that we are spirit people having a human experience, and we have to make the most of this world. And a lot of people feel hopeless and helpless, and like they just can't wait to get out of here. But life is a gift that not all of us get to enjoy at the time. You know, a lot of us get our lives taken early, and I think we really need to look at it in a different perspective, even in this time of COVID. It's pretty complicated, but still the same aspect going on. We need to help each other. Even though we're trying to survive, trying to get through every day, we need to reach out and try to help.
I think that's the lesson that we all need to take from all of this. You're given chance after chance, and the goal is to help each other through this. Give to each other. Really give without expectation. Like you said way earlier in this podcast, we really can't judge anybody else because we don't know what they're living and what their life is.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of this is to grow, learn, evolve, become a better person. And when you finally reach your potential, because God sees a potential in all of us, then we return home. We slowly move up in vibration and energy until we reach the highest level, where we all return back home to God. And so our real purpose here is learn, grow, and return home to God. And that's really the purpose.
So you guys have written 2 books so far, right? I got our first book, The Gift of Past Lives, with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. And then Hell No, Reincarnation, with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. And then you guys have another one coming out soon. What is the name of this next book you have coming out?
The next book is called The Manual. And we named it that way because we never got the manual when we started this life. And we're trying to help people with some of the goals and what they need to learn.
That is
that
so
one
funny.
should come out in the next few weeks.
That's awesome.
And it's interesting because what's inside of manual, it's sort of how the things work, which parts work together, and who you can call to ask if you need help. And so that's your angels and spirit guides.
And I was blown away. Like when I was looking on Amazon and other places at your guys' books, I was like, really? It's that cheap to get this book? It's amazing to me how cheaply you can get this book online through Amazon or whatnot. Where are some different places that we can direct our listeners to find these books?
They can always go to our website,
thegiftofpastlives.com.
Yep, because there's links to there, but they can order them from Barnes & Noble, Walmart. If they're in the UK, they can order it from Waterford or something like that. It's in a lot of different distributors. But you can certainly go to Amazon. Our first 2 books are on Amazon, and they're available both as Kindle and as a regular book.
And if you guys haven't ever tried a Kindle, okay, so I've always been against technology. It took me forever to get a cell phone until my husband forced it on me. Ain't no way you're going to be driving around and I can't get a hold of you. So I got a cell phone, and then I tried a Kindle from the library. I was able to check it out, and it keeps you from having to save your page in the book. You could change the brightness on it. It's just amazing the different technology that we have these days to read these books. You can even do it on your laptop or your cell phone or whatever you prefer to read on, but it's amazing the different outlets where we can get this different knowledge and learn and grow as spiritual and human beings.
Ditto.
Abso-ditto, Carla.
Abso-ditto. Okay, I gotta write that one down. Well, it's been so awesome having you guys. Dave, Carla, if you could tell our listeners a little bit more about you and how to contact you if they have any questions.
Again, on our website, The Gift of Past Lives, you can email us from there if you have questions, and we'll answer.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Michelle, for reaching out to me and introducing me to these amazing light beings. It's so awesome to be in your guys' presence. I love your energy. I love all the stuff that you've shared with us, and I hope that you guys do come back, because I think we're just on the cusp of everything that we've been discussing tonight. It's been an awesome time, but I want to thank you so much once again for being my guest tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies.
Thanks, Tessa.
Yep, it was great, Tessa.
All right, and thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, I almost said Periscope, like I'm thinking about asparagus, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. We got Connie Connick on, and it's going to be stepping into the paranormal with Connie Connick. She's a lovely, brilliant young woman. And we also have psychic medium Robert Lindsay Milne, who started off as a jangly hippie doing tea leaves back in the day, but today he's done thousands of readings, and he is so woke and awakened, and I can't wait to hear his perspectives on life and everything else. You guys, don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. If you'd like to join us on the Skype after look me up and send me a contact request at tessa.n.thomas30, or give us a jingle jangle at 90335-9596. Until next time, all my Periscope and Wapham crew, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and week. Don't work too hard, and I will see you back here same time, same place next weekend.